In today's episode, expect some fire, some more fire, some lights, and even more lights. Water tanks out of the bilge, cleaning and painting the bilge, and starting to paint the boat. You know, I'm quite happy how the things are turning out. So, we are slowly getting electrical power back throughout the boat, both 220 volts and also 12 volt systems. So, now it's time to check the electricity for the galley. So, it has to be switch number 3. Okay, we are good. Let's go to the galley. Okay, here we are. So, let's see if those old lights are still working. Okay, where is the switch? Okay, see it? Okay, this one is good. This one is already turned on, great. And let's check if this thing is working as well. Okay, good. The electricity for the galley is working as expected. And there are even more good news regarding electricity, because eventually we have a light in the toilet as well. And this is the first time I'm seeing it under full light. So let's check how it looks inside. So yes, it's more or less clean. However, you can see that there is some soot on the floor which needs to be cleaned out. But it's not too bad. I think everything should be cleaning out normally. Okay, and now it's time to check the front cabin lighting. If I am right, it should be this switch. So, let's go there. Okay, so it's the front cabin. And yes, contrary to normal situation or normal placement, how it's usually done, I have placed the lights just here. I know it's kind of looks now monster with an open mouth, but I think it fits fine. And let's see if it works. Okay, you can see we have lights as well. And the reason for that is simple. Although originally lights were placed back there, so basically there was one lamp and there was another lamp. Usually when I'm in front cabin or anyone else in the front cabin, so basically there are usually no two people sleeping anyway. So it means when you are there, you are taking a pillow, let's say you are reading something, and then you are simply sitting something like this. And in that case, those lights are lighting perfectly your material, whatever you are reading right now. So yes, this is also a very quick tour of the front cabin. Not much to see here. Of course, it has a hatch as well, which also needs repairs because the wooden planks outside are rotten. And yes, maybe also some varnish should be applied here on top as well to the ceiling, because those panels are very, very raw. And in the front, it's normally a place for chain locker, but since I don't have any chain locker, so it means it's a place to store some other items such as pillows, etc., which would belong to the front cabin. And of course, as usual in the boats, there are hatches for storage underneath here, which currently contain just some random stuff at the moment. And now let's go to the aft cabin. If I remember correctly, that should be this switch. Okay, so we can also close those mahogany doors. Initially, I wanted just to show how the lights are working, but since the lights are all around the cabin, it means I have to do a cabin tour as well. And basically, to do a cabin tour, it's very difficult in a boat when you are doing repairs at the same time, because all of the time there is some junk accumulating here and there, and you just have to move it around the boat in order to show some areas as they would be expected to be looking like. So first let's go to the lights. So initially there was a cheap plastic light. When I bought the boat, it was just hanging from the wire, as you can see in the picture, and I managed to grab a nice looking lamp in a Home Depot, and I think it could fit quite good here in this boat. The only problem is that I have not yet installed the normal light switch. So currently switching it on, it's first switching from control panel, and then I have to screw the bulbs manually in order for it to light. But I believe that's a minor drawback, and it gives a pretty good light. I have installed two 12-volt 9-watt LED lamps here, and it lights the cabin very well if it gets dark. Then yes, this is the only furniture besides bed in the aft cabin, and there are some shelves and also the water faucet. Okay, so if you need to wash your teeth, wash your hands, you can do that without leaving the aft cabin. So I would say it's quite convenient here. Then if we turn around, then the layout is a little bit different than you would normally expect, because usually there is a queen-size bed in such a type of aft cabins, but here it's kind of two separate beds, where still you can sleep very comfortably. It's not an issue with the space, so two adults can definitely sleep without any issues. And also what I like about this layout is that you are getting extra space. So yes, in any case, the sleeping space is definitely more than enough for two adult people, as I can demonstrate. So basically I'm lying down, and you can see that there is plenty of space left. Okay, so what else? Below those cushions there are of course storage spaces. Currently they are taken by some random tools and things I need for boat repair. Nothing so much interesting there. Let's put it back. Here is another shelf, which is currently used by just storing things from my previous boat. So it has life jackets, has some tools, etc. Again, it's kind of convenient, because if you look here, you see there is plenty of space to store things on both sides. And besides, the good thing is that there is a heating pipe going through the shelf. So it means if you are storing something which needs to be dried, etc., it also works as a dryer when a heater is running. So yes, regards lights. So you already saw these main lights for the cabin, but also there are reading lights above the cushions here. So let's turn it on. Of course, they do have some issues, although I have installed LED lights here, but the connection is not perfect, and sometimes both of them cease to work. So currently we have both of them working, but I will be troubleshooting it later. Those are the original lamps. Okay, those are the original lamps which came with The boat, I have not replaced them, and I'm still thinking whether I should be replacing them, because they are quite good if you just need to read a book, or I don't know, watch some movie on your phone or on your laptop, so it's perfectly fine. Okay, so there is another reading light in this corner. For this one, it's kind of strange location, because usually when you are sleeping, there is room for your legs, and basically it doesn't make big sense. And there you can still see there is this old lighting, which I have not replaced. So those should be the original bulbs here. I hope I will not break the plastic. Yes, you can see. So you can see how they are looking like. I will be replacing this with LED as well, but since it's not being used currently, so I have left the original lamps here as well. And we have one more reading light on this corner. It again has the same issues that not both of the lights are not working yet, but I will be troubleshooting it later. And yes, one more thing which I managed to buy in a thrift shop. It's a space heater. It's named Facker, and basically why I chose it, first of all, it's very compact, and second, it's kind of in the same color scheme as the boat, and third, because it's probably from the same age when the boat was built. So I think it fits perfectly fine here. The same goes for this TV set, which basically has nothing to do with this boat. It didn't came with the boat, but I just bought it because I will be removing probably later, but perhaps you can imagine that in the 80s, someone who would be owning that boat would be sitting in the bed and watching some sort of movie on the TV. So yes, and then one more thing, it's regards this book. It's no coincidence that I have this book. It talks about one person who bought a barge in France and then traveled around France Channel. So it's kind of an interesting story of one adventurer. Of course, it's in Latvian, not in English, but basically it kind of fits to the boat here. So yes, in short, I believe that is all from the aft cabin. Not much to show. Yes, of course, there is a hatch, but nothing interesting there. So if I will raise, there will be lead ballast, already one of which fell onto my right finger. So I really don't want to meet it again right now, so let's maybe keep it for some other episode. Another plan for today is to check how the gas stove and oven is working. If it is working at all, of course, because I have not checked it yet. I have no idea how it works, if it works at all. But there is a small, tiny problem to it. In order to connect the gas tank, I need to remove the fridge, because main gas lines are behind it. I need to inspect them for damage before connecting anything. So, let's go! It fits very tight in here, so it's not easy to get it out. Almost there. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we are good. The fridge is out. But since the fridge is out, I believe it's time to check the fridge as well. And overall, The elements on the fridge look quite rusted, and I'm not sure if I should be trying to switch it on. What are your thoughts, by the way? Shall I try to plug it in, or replace it as soon as possible, before even attempting to plug it in? But for me it kind of looks very tempting to plug it in and just see what happens. Because after all, it might make another YouTube video at least. Okay, so it's time to check this vintage propane oven, and I really hope we are not going to create an explosion here. Ancient civilizations used rocks and sticks to light a fire. Lighting a vintage propane oven was not that much different, as it turned out. At first you think it should be easy, and then you start to think, what the heck is going on? And then you start randomly pushing and holding all the buttons on the oven, hoping that one of them will make it work. And finally, when you feel a strong smell of propane, you start thinking whether the oven will light up or the bolt will blow up first, it suddenly starts to work. You can see the flame is still unstable, but I hope it will improve with time. Meanwhile, I have no plans to use gas stove and oven in near future, because I do not have a compartment to store propane tanks. Looking at current configuration, it looks propane tank was stored outside on the deck, but this creates unnecessary clutter, and ugly view as well. I will think about other options in the future. As for storing inside without a separate compartment, no plans to do it, as the propane gas is heavier than air, and all leaks will accumulate in the bilge, making a disaster just waiting to happen. Since I have enough problems with the bolt already, I really don't want to add one more to the list. The background noise you are hearing comes from vintage Electrolux kitchen hood, which has not been used for 10 years or more since the bolt was abandoned. So this is why it creates additional squeaks and some rattling sounds besides normal operation noise. But let's stop talking about ovens. Since this is not a channel about how to cook a food in the oven, let's proceed to the other parts more related to the boat itself. While the diesel fuel mixed with antifreeze perhaps did have some anti-corrosive properties in the bilge, the musty smell of the mix was too much for me to handle. So I used the Karcher vacuum cleaner to siphon it all out. Front part of the bilge had the most obvious rust issues, so it was time to take care of it. Let's do some painting. Okay, so this is the same area now. What I did, I used needle scaling, then applied Brunox epoxy, then waited for some time, and then applied 2-part Hempedur 45143 epoxy coating, which is also being used to coat the ballast tanks for the ships, so it should be quite durable. It was also a perfect time to check the galley area of the bilge, and in order to do it properly, the two 250-liter stainless steel water tanks had to be removed. Often, most serious rust issues appear in areas underneath water tanks, so this area definitely needed a closer look. But first, I checked the water tanks itself, and they were looking perfectly fine for a 40-year-old stainless steel water tanks. And now we can finally check the bilge. Some initial cleaning had to be done first by removing multiple layers of grime, soot, unidentified oily substances, 2 dead bird carcasses, and a lot of other smelly things which seemed to have a meeting in the bilge of my boat. And for the bilge in the galley, I decided to do a lazy approach. So what I did, I used a mix of OSFO rust converter together with evaporust. Evaporust I was using previously for typewriter restoration, but I think it could perfectly fine work as well in the bilge, because what it does, if you leave something soaking in it for a couple of days, all the rust is gone and you are just getting a shiny metal underneath. So all we have to do now is just wait a couple of days. After siphoning out the rust converters and doing a little cleaning with wire wheel, this is how it is looking now. Yes, you can see a lot of small pittings, but for a 5 mm of steel thickness, this should not be something to be worried about now, as I do not see a significant corrosion here. All that is left to do is to apply some Brunox epoxy, rust converter, and a top coat. You can still see some Brunox epoxy in the bottom of the bilge, but that will be covered with another layer of top coat. When the water tanks were back in the bilge and all water supply lines were connected, we found out that Aqua King has lost its crown. We needed a new pump. Whenever I'm working on something, usually there are a lot of spare parts left. This boat is no exception. Various pipes, pumps, a heat exchanger, and even a melted bilge pump on top. All the items which will have no use for me anymore. I'm a little concerned that I'm getting some spare parts from the engine as well, but what can go wrong here anyway? It was time to check the swimming platform, and I'm not sure why this one is called a swimming platform, as it will definitely sink instead of swimming if I will drop it into the water. The whole underwater line had no rust, and there was plenty of original paint sticking to it, as it was sandblasted and painted already after the fire. This is why a choice was made to wash it, apply a couple of coats of Brunox, and cover it with antifouling. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the name of this boat. So it didn't came with a name, and in Sweden basically for any vehicle on the water, if it's less than 5 meters wide or less than 24 meters long, you don't need any license, you don't need any registration, and you can perfectly have a boat without a name as well. And so this boat came without a name, and there was no name anywhere, no name on the hull, and the only name which I found anywhere, it was on this space heater. It's a name Aiken, and I'm not even sure if it's the name of this boat, it's the name of another boat, maybe it's the name of the person, but for me I didn't want to call this boat Aiken. Because, first of all, I wanted to have a female name for the boat, because it sounds more classic, and also I don't like the name Aiken, because it gives me wrong rhymes in my head, such as Aiken, bacon, and I really don't want to call my boat with something which resembles bacon, at least with the rhymes. And yes, the choice of the name. If you know the series Game of Thrones, there was this female knight named Brienne of Tarth. She was very strong, very capable, but not the most prettiest woman on the planet. This name would fit perfectly fine, and with a slight variation, it's the name Brianna. So yes, that is the story of the name for this boat.